Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here. A quick preview and prediction for Jesse Hart versus Joe Smith Jr. This fight goes down on the 11th of January and it takes place at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Now this fight takes place at light heavyweight and I've got to say, I think this is a solid fight. Should be good to watch, should be fairly fan friendly, and it's an interesting fight to start the year. I would say both fighters are fringe top 10 level light heavyweights, and the winner of this fight can push towards maybe a title shot in the future. So a lot to play for here, and like I said, stylistically, this one should be quite a good watch. It really is the boxer versus the puncher, or at least that's what I think it will turn into. Let's briefly run through the tail of the tape. Jesse Hart has a record of 26 wins, 2 defeats, 0 draws. 21 of his 26 wins coming by way of knockout. He's an orthodox fighter. Joe Smith Jr., he has a record of 24 wins, 3 defeats, 0 draws. 20 of his 24 wins coming by way of knockout. He is also an orthodox fighter. Now Jesse Hart is listed as 6'3" with a 77.5-inch reach, whereas Joe Smith Jr. is listed as 6 foot with a 73.5-inch reach. So Jesse Hart, despite coming up from super middleweight, is the taller, longer man. He has a 3-inch height advantage and also a 4-inch reach advantage, and they are considerable advantages. And will that play a factor in this fight? I believe there's a strong possibility it will do. Also, in regards to the knockout power, I would say Joe Smith Jr. is the harder puncher here, or at least he's a more proven puncher. He's knocked out guys like Bernard Hopkins and Andre Fonfara at light heavyweight. However, Jesse Hart, his power can't be overlooked. I think he punches fairly hard. He's got that snappy power that can really stop you in your tracks. And if Joe Smith Jr. is too careless, don't be surprised to see him get hurt or even dropped. But, if I were a betting man, and to use a Dwyer phrase, I would say I would bet Jesse Hart on points hedged by Joe Smith Jr. by knockout. If Jesse Hart wins, I would say it would most likely be by points. And if Joe Smith Jr. wins, I would say more than likely it would be by knockout. So yeah, that's what I would do if I was a betting man. But, going into this fight, I expect Jesse Hart to try to make the most of his height and reach advantage. He's got fairly good legs and he can throw good long straight punches. He's got a nice jab, a nice one too. And, he can try and manage the distance. And I believe that's what he will do. Joe Smith Jr. is an aggressive fighter, as we know. He likes to close the space and throw hooks. He'll throw hooks with both hands to head and body. And he's got a really good chopping overhand right as well. But, he comes in fairly square and he is open to straight shots. Because he throws looping wide shots, he's open to those straight shots and how he squares up. So watch out for Jesse Hart, making a home for his jab and landing that 1-2 down the pipe as Joe Smith Jr. comes in. I think that's what he's going to try and do. He'll try and set the pace and, keep Joe Smith Jr. turning, keep Joe Smith Jr. off balance so he can't make the most of his punching power. We saw that against Dimitri Bivol. Dimitri Bivol really did a good job of neutralising the threat that Joe Smith Jr. posed. He really kept Joe Smith off balance throughout that fight, and he did a good job countering Joe Smith coming in, which also made Smith Jr. a bit more reluctant to throw his shots. And I think Jesse Hart will obviously try to replicate a similar game plan. I don't think he's anywhere near a good a boxer as Dimitri Bivol, but he has the basic attributes to outbox Joe Smith Jr. in my opinion. He can't get involved in a war with Joe Smith Jr. because that does favour Joe Smith. Does Jesse Hart have the chin to take a fully fledged light heavyweight's power? I'm not so sure. At 168, I saw Jesse Hart get hurt a fair bit by Gilberto Ramirez. Jesse Hart was also dropped by a journeyman. I think it was Dashon Johnson, but I've seen Jesse Hart hurt at 168, so if I was him, I really wouldn't want to be getting hit by Joe Smith Jr. too often, so Jesse Hart needs to avoid a brawl, but As we saw with Ramirez, Jesse Hart will mix it up with you. And when he does that, he is susceptible, especially up close. And if this fight does go up close, don't get me wrong, Jesse Hart can have success. He's got some nice uppercuts, some nice short shots, but I would favour Joe Smith Jr. in those exchanges up close with those short chopping shots, that overhand right. So yeah, Jesse Hart needs to avoid those moments where it's a bit of a trade-off, where both guys are up close throwing shots. At times, he may need to fight that type of fight to keep Joe Smith honest, to fight his way out of those situations, but he needs to avoid those situations as much as possible. Joe Smith Jr., he needs to apply pressure, obviously, but he needs to do it in a more educated fashion against Jesse Hart. As we saw with Bivol, he was guilty of following Bivol around without really cutting off a ring effectively. He never really used a jab to get his way in. In this fight, I would like to see Joe Smith Jr. try to come in behind the jab, try to feint his way in, try and bait Jesse Hart into setting his feet so Joe Smith can close the gap and get on the inside and work. Joe Smith needs to apply the pressure he usually does, but with a bit more intelligence. Can he do that? I mean, it remains to be seen. Joe Smith Jr. is fairly basic. We've not really seen that side to his game yet, but you never know. And going into this fight, yeah, I certainly believe Joe Smith needs to be a bit more intelligent with his pressure, like I say, use the jab. Try and feint a bit more, give Jesse Hart some different looks, come in low, change levels. Yeah, Joe Smith Jr. needs to be a bit more intelligent with his pressure. He needs to show a bit more variety in how he gets his shots off. So, listen, Joe Smith Jr. certainly has a chance in this fight. He certainly has a puncher's chance. He's got the power to hurt Jesse Hart and, in my opinion, knock him out. But if these guys fought 10 times, I would say Jesse Hart would win more than he lost. So, my official prediction for this fight would be Jesse Hart on points in a competitive fight, but Joe Smith Jr. certainly has a good shot. I've not actually seen the bookies' odds for this fight. I'll be interested to see what they're saying, to be quite honest, but I like the fight, I really do. I think both guys are pretty viable contenders at light heavyweight. Jesse Hart looked quite good in his last fight against Sullivan Barrera, so we'll see what he can do in the new weight class. And yeah, what do you guys think about this fight? Who are you picking? Share your thoughts below. Peace.